Well, welcome to Rethinking Freedom. I am your host, Aya Fabarinelli, and I am really excited about this episode, which is all about Kwanzaa. And if you've never heard of it, or you're not sure what it is, or it even maybe scares you, you are in the right place. You want to like, subscribe, share this with everyone, and hopefully incorporate what you learned today into your life, into your daily practices as well. So today I have two esteemed guests with me. They are absolute pillars in Central Texas, particularly in the Killeen area and in the Black community more specifically. And they are, I say, Mama Darlene Chapman. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you for having me.
And also Baba Tunde, who he will tell you a little bit more. But this is the gentleman that made this show possible to begin with. Was not thinking about it, and I get a phone call from him, and here we are. And he is a breadth of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, has put in a lot of effort in our community, and I'm really glad to have you as a guest on the show again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure being here.
We have a lot that we want to cover in this period of time. And I am going to start with a message from Dr. Malua Kenga, who is the founder and the creator of Kwanzaa. And so every year he has a message that he puts out. It's on the official Kwanzaa website. You can go and look that up. And for this year, 2024, the theme is celebrating Kwanzaa in difficult and demanding times, lifting up the light that lasts. And the focus this year is really on one of the principles. You hear about all 7 principles of the Nguzo Saba and what that means. But the first principle that he's really highlighting this year is Umoja, because as he says, it makes all other principles and related practices possible, promising, and successful. And so it is about unity this year, lifting up the light that lasts. So let's get right into this with our guests. Let me start with you, Baba Tunde.
All right.
Tell us a little bit, if you can, briefly, a history of Kwanzaa.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I would like to thank our host, you, for giving me the honor of being here today.
Thank you. It's my honor.
Before I speak about Kwanzaa, I would like to start with the shifting political climate that some would say we have found ourselves in since the outcome of the November election is more of a gear stick than a clutch malfunction, because the political machine that many of us confine in and rely on to move us forward could roll us back 220 years. I was born during Jim Crow segregation of black people from white people for almost 100 years. And part of the population explosion called the baby boomers that occurred in this country after African American military service personnel returned to the United States from World War II to experience discrimination in every sector of society. When I came of age, a few generations later, during the Vietnam era, the expectation remained that even in the midst of segregation, social disparity, and second-class citizenship, we didn't quit.
We did not quit.
The threat by the incoming administration to invoke oppressive acts from the 18th century is the dog whistle for a return to one of the most shameful stages in the history of this nation. It is called for a return to pre-emancipation ways of living that contradicts our freedom to practice the principles that remain fundamental to Kwanzaa tradition of Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa.
Thank you so much for giving that little bit of
Yes.
and giving that context, because sometimes as I talk to people, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter, but it's really understanding that these aren't things that are happening in a vacuum, but there was a reason Kwanzaa was created, and actually was created during the Black Power movement in the 60s, in 1966 to be specific. All right, so would you like to share a little bit more about that?
Well, I wanted to just continue with, and I have it in order.
Okay.
By your questions.
Yes.
Okay. By your questions. Okay. First, I'd like to say Habari Gani, which is a Swahili term meaning "what is the news." It is spoken when greeting others during Kwanzaa. The appropriate response is to say the name of the principal for that day. Each day of Kwanzaa centers around the Nzugo Saba, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, which I will share later.
So why does Kwanzaa matter? Why should people care?
For the African American community, Kwanzaa is not just any black holiday. It's a recognition that knowledge of black history is worthwhile. It brings together the black community not in the basis of their religious faith, but a shared cultural heritage. We look at Kwanzaa as part of the struggle to overturn white definitions for defining us as a people.
How about you, Mama Darlene? Why does Kwanzaa matter? Because in our community, both of you have been instrumental, actually the driving forces behind the community-wide celebration of Kwanzaa. So why does Kwanzaa matter?
The Africans and Americans were stolen, ripped from the wombs of Africa, brutalized, dehumanized, decultured, traumatized, reprogrammed for self-hate and self-destruction. Kwanzaa is one of those forces that help redirect our energy into solving our own problems.
My God.
It's the healing festival that helps Africans in America recapture their pride, dignity, and the African culture. Kwanzaa is a re-Africanization ritual. It is a very unique holiday in the Americans. It allows us to explore our cultural roots and to recognize our own uniqueness.
I want a copy of that.
Right? Absolutely. I'm thinking, well, it's going out globally, so people will be quoting you. Make sure you give credit to Mama Darlene Chapman for that. And as the creator of Kwanzaa stated, and this is on the official Kwanzaa site, he says, the holiday Kwanzaa is a product of creative cultural synthesis. That is, it's a product of critical selection and judicious mixture on several levels. First, he says, Kwanzaa is a synthesis of both continental African and diasporan African cultural elements. So he looked at who we are as a people across the globe, and he pulled elements from our traditions, our culture. So when you say what we've experienced, when you talked about your personal experiences and you're saying this is a holiday that isn't just let's have fun, but it's a holiday to ground ourselves again in who we are and what our culture is. That is so incredibly important. So let's move on to another question that I have of you as we continue to explain this. The history. What is the history of Kwanzaa?
Okay. Kwanzaa was created by Malua Kenga out of the turbulent times of the 1960s in Los Angeles, California. Following the Watts riots, when a young African American was pulled over on suspicion of drunk driving, resulting in an outbreak of violence. Kenga founded an organization called US, meaning Black People, which promoted black culture. The purpose of the organization was to provide a platform which would help to rebuild the Watts neighborhood through a strong, organized, rooted in American culture. Kenga called its creation an act of cultural discovery, which simply meant that he wanted to point African Americans to a greater knowledge of their African heritage and past.
Thank you very much for that. So we've already referred to the Nguzo Saba a number of times here. Mama Darlene, can you share a little bit more about what the Nguzo Saba is, what those 7 principles are?
The 7 principles, the first one is Umoja, which means unity. The second one is Kujichagulia, self-determination. Ujima is collective works and responsibility. Ujama, cooperative economics. Near purpose, Kuumba, creativity, and the last one is Imani, which stands for faith.
Okay, December 26th, the first day of Kwanzaa. It goes from the 26th to the 1st of January. The first day of Nguza Saba is Umoja, or unity, which means to strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. There is no one principle that is more important than the other. You need all 7 to be a well-rounded person, community, nation, and race. I believe that everything starts and ends with family and community. December 27th, the second day of Nguzo Saba, is Kujichagulia, or self-determination, which means to define and name ourselves, as well as to create and speak for ourselves. December 28th, the third day of Nguzo Saba, is Ujima, or collective works and responsibility, which means to build and maintain our communities together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. December 29th, the following day of Nguzo Saba, is Ujama, or cooperative economics, which means to build, support, and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. Before we can do that, remember, to whom you give your money is to whom you give your power.
Can you say that part again?
To whom you give your money is to whom you give your power.
Absolutely.
December 30th, the 5th day of Nguzo Saba, is Nia, or purpose, which means to make our collective decisions to the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional places in America. December 31st, the 6th day of Nguzo Saba, is Kuumba, or creativity, which means to always do as much as we can in the way that we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. January 1st, the 7th day of the Nguzo Saba, is Imani, or faith, which means to believe with all our hearts in our people, in our parents, in our African American teachers, and our African American leaders, and in the righteousness and victory of our struggles in the belly of the beast, the United States of America.
Wow. So for anyone who was listening to that, which I hope is everyone, and maybe you were like, I can't take all these notes at this time. Of course, you can find information online. There are also books. This is a very simple book that I bought in my family quite a few years ago when my children were much younger. And this still guides us as we practice Kwanzaa every single year. And for me, actually year round, because these are principles that really we should be living with. Period. So, Mama Darlene, what would you say in terms of these principles? How do you see them being important for our everyday practice as we look at what's happening with the Black community?
Well, these principles act as a foundation for Africanization of people of African descent. It educates us on the Nguzo Saba. It encourages us to come together, celebrate our history, and work towards improving the community by creating strong bonds between each other, fostering a shared purpose and identity.
Thank you so much for sharing that. As I have experienced Kwanzaa, as I've seen many other communities, and as I believe Dr. Kenga intended this, it is about bringing us together. It is about going back to our roots, studying, understanding that history. It is about respecting our elders, and it is about venerating our ancestors. And in the midst of all of that, God is at the center. It is still understanding who we are as divine creatures, really, created by a divine God. And so that is one of the things that even as someone who grew up as a Christian, as I began to learn more about Kwanzaa, I absolutely wanted to incorporate it into my family, because I, to a large degree, actually found it more meaningful than some of the religious practices that I had been brought up with. Is there anything else that you would like to say regarding that?
Yes, just give me one moment, please.
No problem at all.
I'm trying to find the question that you.
And while he's doing that, there's so many resources out there. What I would say is, like everything black, we are unfortunately viewed as a commodity to be consumed. So there are a lot of products relating to Kwanzaa that are not made by African people, and African people do not benefit from the sale. So when you go looking for resources to incorporate into your Kwanzaa celebration, please try to find resources that are either created by us or at least sold by us. But here is a calendar. This one is actually from 2022. And it's the Global African Celebration, Ancient to the Future. And it has so much great information. You can go and look online and get a copy. It gives you information about what Kwanzaa is, what to do, and when to do it. For this community, they actually have a list of different Kwanzaa events that were happening in that community. And then, of course, it lists the Nguzo Saba. And as you were talking more about the Nguzo Saba, I couldn't help but the part about Ujima, collective work and responsibility, the part where you talked about that who you give your money to is who you give your power. And I'm looking at all of these corporations in the day and age that we live in now who are saying, we do not care about DEI, we don't have any concerns about you people, but we want you to keep coming in and spend your money. But go ahead.
Well, I was going to, like I said, I'm addressing the questions.
Yes.
On the one that I'm about to follow now is tips for celebrating Kwanzaa.
Yes. What are your tips?
Family members.
Yes.
Each day also consists of a candle lighting ritual. You have a Kinara, a candle holder, and 7 candles. 1 black candle representing people of African descent.
I will actually hold that up so people can see. This is
Okay.
what a Kinara.
Yes.
There's lots of different kinds, but this is a Kinara.
Point out the black candle first, please.
Yes.
Okay, representing people of African descent. 3 red candles, which represents the struggles of the people of African descent. 3 green candles, which represent the land and hope for the future. The black candle is lit first, then used to light each of the other candles. On the day that is celebrated, going back and forth lighting the red and green candles. Some families who celebrate Kwanzaa dress up or decorate their homes in those colors.
Yes.
Like we are now. Homemade and educational gifts are encouraged in order to avoid over-commercialization. That means we keep the money in our communities. If you can support black businesses, then by all means you do that. Alternative things you can do. Some participants buy books, music, art, accessories, or other culturally themed products, preferably from a black-owned business again. Remember, to whom you give your money is to whom you give your power.
Mama Darlene, what are some of your tips for celebrating Kwanzaa?
Well, some of my tips are, if you have family in the community, like I have my children here, so we can celebrate all 7 days. Each child would take a principal, celebrate it at their home, and we'll all come together. If you don't, then you can get with friends, neighbors, everybody on one accord and celebrate. But one thing that I would like to say that's very important to me is I would like for the businesses to come together. Baba passed Kwanzaa on to me. He's my mentor. And he passed it on to me. And I've been only able to celebrate one day, and I incorporate all the principles in that one day.
For the community-wide
event. But I would like for maybe organizations to come together and say, hey, I'll take this day, but we all have it in the one location.
Yes.
And expand from there. That organization, would assist us, or they do it that day, and then they could have like always something for the children. Let it be around 1, 2 o'clock. It could be like they learning how to make candles, or they learning how to make bars of soap, as a gift. Or, we have some that's poets, they do something, the children, because we got to pass this on to our children. The next thing that I would like for to take place would be like in the community. Like I said, organizations coming together, help out, maybe one day they take it, the next day another group take it, and we just do all 7 days, as a whole.
Yeah. So in my, please go
No,
ahead.
I was going to just add on, that's what we did in Houston. It would spread out among 7 businesses.
Right.
Each business would have a day, and I mean, they would really put on a good show. And it wasn't just about celebrating, it was also about educating.
Right.
Sometimes we celebrate too much and don't do enough educating.
That part.
And that's one way that we can do that.
Right.
I absolutely agree. So when I made the decision and talked with my family, but quite frankly, I was going to do it whether they wanted to. That's my role as the mama. When I made the decision and talked with my family about, hey, can we embrace this and embrace these principles? We, like I said, we did buy some books and things that we wanted to read. But this book in particular has been really helpful to my family. It's called Kwanzaa, How to Celebrate It in Your Home. And one of the things that I love about it, in addition to the illustrations, it works for young kids, it works for other kids, is it does give the history. It talks about the cultural symbols of Kwanzaa. So Babatunde, you already mentioned the Kinara. We showed you the Kinara. There's a Mkeka, it's a mat, and I will later on show you guys a little bit more about this. You gotta watch the part 2 to see the mat. We have the candles, which are called the Mishumaa Saba. Mishumaa Saba. So these are all Kiswahili words. And then we also have the Kikombe, and this is the one we use in my family. And so we have our whatever drink we want to use. It's usually some kind of juice, and it's our unity cup. And as we go through our rituals, we actually all drink from this same unity cup. Yes, yes. We definitely, I'm glad you mentioned libation, because so in my family, what we do is we practice all 7 principles every night from day 26 through, from December 26th through January 1st. We put it on the calendar. Everybody knows from 7 to 9, 7 to 10, it's family time. You're not going out with your friends. We're not watching any shows or anything like that. And because there are 7 people in my family, what we've done is we actually assign. So like you were talking about assigning a day to each organization or business, we assign a day, one of the principles, to each member of the family. And it's their responsibility to plan the meal, to plan an activity around that principle where we talk about it. What does it mean? How do we apply it to our own lives? So it's a time for bonding. And at this point, it's just our nuclear family, because we don't have extended family that live around here. But like you said, I would love to see where we can do this on a larger scale. And of course, we attend whatever community event there is for Kwanzaa, the one day here. I also want to mention that we also have, as part of the symbols of Kwanzaa, the Mazao. And that's the fruits, the first fruits. And I'm gonna lift this basket up a little bit here. These are actually all from my garden. They're literally first fruits from my garden. You can see these tomatoes aren't green yet. Melon, the regular lemon, whatever, peppers, whatever. But part of African culture is understanding the importance of agriculture and the importance of harvest and those first fruits. And that's something that was incorporated into Kwanzaa. So we still symbolically have it here, even though this is winter for us in this hemisphere. But again, the fact of the matter is that although Kwanzaa started here in the United States of America, it's a Pan-African holiday, and so it has spread, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. There's millions that actually practice Kwanzaa today.
Yes.
And as you said, it's the African continental celebration is what it has turned into.
Yes. Yes. So again, with this book, it gives you how to arrange your table. If you want to arrange a table, you don't have to. Start wherever you can. Let it be as small or as big as you want it to be. Our last night is definitely, we get dressed up. There's music. We have a whole spread like some may have for Thanksgiving or Christmas or any of your other holidays, but we do that on the last day. And what I also love about this book is that it gives us some information on even having a Kwanzaa pledge. So I'm going to just share that pledge really quickly here. This is a pledge we say every night as we practice our traditions here. We pledge to be keepers of our culture, wise in our decisions, active in our communities, noble to our elders, zealous in our efforts for progress, advocates for our children, achievers in all our endeavors. And of course, we end with Harambe, which means let's pull together. Harambe!
Harambe!
So, yes.
Well, the next one that I was looking at here, what was it? Why should you attend and celebrate Kwanzaa?
Yes. And I know Mama Darling is going to tell us about the Kwanzaa celebration we're having, which you're going to be speaking of. But why should we attend? For anybody watching in Central Texas.
All right. We should attend and celebrate Kwanzaa to reaffirm the bonds between us, Black people, and to counter the damage done by the Holocaust of the enslavement of Africans within America. Within America, we lost our names, our language, our religions, our homeland. As Malcolm would say, we lost our minds. Kwanzaa celebrations are a moment of this awareness and reflection.
Thank you very much. So, Mama Darling, you've got a Kwanzaa celebration coming up. You want to tell the people who are in this viewing area where it is and what time and...
28 December, the event kicks off at 5 o'clock. The doors open at 4:30 p.m. It's at the Killeen Civic and Conference Center, 3601 South W.S. Young.
And I've been for quite a few years. There are a number of things that you do during that Kwanzaa celebration. Do you want to share a little bit about what people can expect?
It's an educational platform, for one. We try to make sure that children play a vital role in Kwanzaa because they are our future leaders. We want them to always be the ones that pass on the tradition of Kwanzaa. We have African drumming, we'll have dance, we'll have speakers, Babatunde, we'll have reverence to our ancestors, pouring of libations, so much more. We'll even have a feast, at the end.
And there are always vendors. And what I love about the vendors that you have, these are people who are uplifting our culture. You see young people who make soap, who make lotions, things that we use on a daily basis. I met a young lady who you may know. She is, I think, 12 years old now. I think she was 11 when I met her, Miss Janae. And she is an author of, I think, 4 or 5 books. 5 books. She was there. And let me tell you, my daughter published a book when she was 9. The reason she published that book is because she picked up a book that was written by someone who was 10 years old. And that was what gave her the idea. Wait a second, young people can write too. So I love to see Janae. I love to see how confident she is, how knowledgeable she is about her culture and her history. It shows that you've been pouring a lot into her. She was one of the vendors, and I was completely blown away by her. But there's an opportunity for other people to vend as well, right? Who should they contact?
They can go to the organization website, www.sbrca.org. Click on the event link. We're accepting no more than 20 vendors, and this is our chance of giving back to the community. The vendor booth is free. You know.
Oh my goodness! There's not a fee.
There's not a fee.
I need to get some things together and sign up.
Right. This is just one of our events.
Yes.
So we actually make this one free because it's all about sharing the knowledge, sharing our wealth, and enriching the individuals that's out there. You know, like Baba say, to whom you give your money is to whom you give your power. And for me, I look at it that each one teach one. So if the vendors, when they register, I'm selecting, in a sense, what kind of vendor is this?
Yes.
You know, are they pouring into us?
Yes.
You know, so we don't accept any food vendors. So food vendors, this is not for you. It's only for arts and craft, T-shirt vendors. You know, books.
Yes.
Especially books.
Yes.
Well, since I have the opportunity, young lady, I am so proud of you. You have done a fantastic job. You really have. I've done a lot of picking, okay, and putting younger people in, well, you were younger at that time.
Yes.
And different things that I was doing. And do you know, every last one of them still continues. The poetry, all of it, nothing has gone. And she's a new one, actually, that's doing a fantastic job. But truly, I thank you for carrying this tradition on.
Thank you, Baba.
You're welcome.
And you know, I'm always calling them too.
I'm always calling him too. Now, learned about him before I ever met him because I read about him in Alice Dowse's book, Tapestry.
Yeah, Tapestry.
And I said, how did he leave the community before I got here? Because you own the bookstore and everything in this community.
Yes.
But I don't want to gloss over what you just said, though. You know, here in the United States, but we see it across the globe, we certainly see it in Africa, where you have elders who don't ever pass on the baton. Like they want to stay, quote unquote, in power forever and even beyond.
Yes.
And just here, without it being planned necessarily, you pass the baton on to Mama Charlene. Darlene Chapman. I'm putting the first and last name together. Mama Darlene Chapman,
The Innovative Black Chamber of Commerce.
Innovative Black Chamber of Commerce. Ronnie Russell, you called me and said, hey, I think you should do this, and here we go, and hopefully we're educating people, and if you like what we're doing, would like to see more, please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Please listen to us on all the podcast platforms as well. But what is it about you and that causes you to interact with people and to show up in the way that you do?
Well, since I have the opportunity, I want to thank you, truly, because you have done a fantastic job in such a short period of time.
Thank you.
You know, I haven't really had the time to listen, but I was at the first one.
Yes, you were. You have to be.
I was at the first one, but I pay attention to the Facebook, all the other things that's happening, and you're just phenomenal what you're doing. I love the subjects that you're talking about. Sometimes I might want to be in a few more. Okay.
You know what? You have an open door.
Oh my.
Because none of this would have happened without you. I wasn't thinking about it. You had to kind of talk me into it.
I did.
And so, yeah, you absolutely, because we need to hear from you. We need to hear from our elders.
All right, now you asked me a question.
Yes.
Repeat it, please.
So the question that I had after Mama Darlene was sharing what she said is, what is it about you that has allowed you to show up the way that you do and to mentor in the way that you do?
Well,
and maybe a message you have for others.
Part of it is my history. I was born in New York. My mother took my brother and I to North Carolina. I was at 3 years old and we stayed until we were 10. But during that time frame, it was Jim Crow. You know, and I saw things where even at that age, I was quite curious. My mother used to always have to, don't be quiet. But I wanted to know why I couldn't go on the front of the bus. I wanted to know why I couldn't go in the, downstairs to the theaters. Why couldn't I eat at the counters? We had to go through a walk-through areas in the back of buildings, restaurants to get food. We worked in the fields. I picked cotton. I did lots of things people would not imagine, really. It was a rough 7 years. So at any rate, I learned over time to just love my people, to have a genuine care and concern from them. I say to myself, it's how I get through a lot of things here in Killeen. When I was going through business, it was rough. I was fighting both communities, okay, because they didn't.
That is unfortunate,
yeah.
yes.
And so the one thing I did is I embraced us. And I embraced us by saying to myself, which I still live by today, there's nothing my people can do to me that's going to make me stop loving them. That's why you see me do what I do today. That's that genuine concern and care that I have for us.
Mm.
It's that important.
Mm.
Someone, we have to continue. Yeah, and you know, there's a saying I always say, you know, you've heard the term knowledge is power, but it's not power until you pass it on to someone younger than yourself.
Who applies that knowledge, yes.
And that's what I do. I'm trying to just pass it so I know it continues.
Well, we're living proof that you're doing it right, I think,
Yes,
right?
that's absolutely
Now we got to
right.
keep it going.
All right. All right.
So how did you even come about celebrating Kwanzaa?
I came to Killeen by the way of the military, Fort Hood at the time, and single soldier.
So you're a veteran as well.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you. And I found Under One Bookstore.
Under one bookstore.
Under one roof.
Under one roof.
bookstore.
Under one roof. And like Baba said, you know, even though I'm younger than him, but I was a baby boomer. I'm a baby boomer also.
Yeah.
And it was a struggle. Being in the military, you know, it was a struggle, especially being a single soldier. It was a struggle all around, you know, just maneuvering, you know, from racism, even in the military, racism, even, you know, just as a civilian, because I went in the military much older.
Okay.
And when I found a bookstore, I felt like I was at home.
Wow.
And I was very inquisitive, so I would always ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had any problems,
He said, mm-hmm.
if I had any problems, I would go to him. And Baba, you know, one thing about him, he talked in riddles to me. He would never just come out.
That's an African thing.
He would never come out and tell me what I needed to know.
African proverbs.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and I was like, he said, you'll figure it out. And I got to come back probably 2 or 3 days later. I didn't figure it out. And so I'm constantly talking. Then he said, well, go over there and get one of them books. You know, so I started, that's what got me into doing more reading. I love reading, but the reading was more about us.
That's what I was going to say. Because I talk to people who are like, I read. And I'm like, well, what are you reading? And they start, and I say,
and it uplifted me, you know, and it empowered me. And then all of a sudden, he told me they were having a Kwanzaa celebration. And I went, and I was blown away. You know, he had poets there talking
And this was
spoken
at the
word.
store.
And
I
it was
had a
at,
space in the back of the store for all of this.
yes,
It's like a community center.
and it was so educative and informative. You know, that's not the only thing that they did there, though. But we're talking about Kwanzaa, so.
Yes.
But it was an outlet for, you know, just us, the people. You know, those of us that were lost, I was truly lost, you know. And it was like a breath of fresh air for me. So when he decided to say, I'm leaving Killeen, I was hurt, you know. I didn't want him to go. You know, then he come to the house, take this, I'm passing it on to you. And I think he did because I was always asking questions. And he helped me, you know, get my nonprofit together, you know, feed me information on what to do, how to do it. And because of that, it's all about the children for me.
yes.
It's all about making sure they come up. Like the way he was bringing me up, you know, I had a good structure from home, you know, but when you're away from home, you still need that foundation.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Yes.
Well, she mentioned I closed. I didn't want to close, but it was necessary. My daughter, you know, she was going through her education phase, trying to get her life in order. She was a single parent, and she had my grandson, and he was 4 years old at the time. And so my wife and I, we thought about it, we talked about it, and we did it. I went to Houston for 14 years. But while there, I took my grandson for 8 years so she could get her career together. And believe it or
So
not,
again, just embodying all of this, the family, making decisions for your family, making decisions to make the community stronger. You are a living example of what that is.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So as I said, I went up, we took him, and he needed a male presence in his life anyway, so that's why I really took him. She's Dr. Jones now. She's got a doctorate degree in education. And he's at Morehouse College in his second year studying medicine.
Morehouse man.
Yeah, he's a man of Morehouse.
A man of Morehouse. Okay, let me get it right.
But
Okay.
he's doing quite well.
That is great to hear.
And so my wife and I, we were still in Houston. My daughter was in, different areas. She went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was a good one. I enjoyed that one because when I traveled there, I got to see, Black Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I talked to the people. There was only 2 businesses actually left. And so I got to talk to them, and I got the history. I went to the museum. I already knew about it.
Yes.
But just to see it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do when I travel,
Yeah.
is to find museums that tell the stories
Yes.
of Black people and indigenous people. When
Yes.
we went to Hawaii, I said, yeah, you guys can have all of this. I want to understand what happened to the original peoples of this land.
Yeah,
Yes.
I really want to make my next trip to Australia to see the Aborigines.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't go to see them either.
I hear you. I absolutely hear you on that. So I do have a question though, because this is one that I've heard before when I worked at Central Michigan University and we had a Kwanzaa celebration, and at one point there were some students who were upset with me. They felt like I was imposing my culture on them. They did not know the history of Kwanzaa and did not realize that it was actually originated here in the U.S. by an African American. So there are people who want to say, I got some Native in me. I'm Indian, and so it's like we want to claim. We'll claim Negro. We'll claim of color. We will claim Black, but we don't want to claim the African part of it. So for those people who are still hesitant and they're saying, I don't know that I can get with all these Kiswahili words and all these African concepts and all of that. Do you have any message to anyone who's still on the fence about whether Kwanzaa is something that they should look at, whether these, the Nguzo Saba, whether these 7 principles are things that they should actually embrace for themselves? Anything just that you would like to share, just from your experiences, what Kwanzaa has meant to you?
For me, when we practice Kwanzaa, it involves redirecting our thoughts. We practice cooperation, peace, truth, justice, righteousness, sistership, brothership, harmony, reciprocity, creativity, collective works, and responsibility. But most of all, sharing our determination and cultural integrity of the people and of our values. And this serves as a grounding point. We get grounded when we do that, and it actually binds us in the community socially.
That is powerful. Grounding. Yes, that is powerful.
It's, I will add to that, how does Kwanzaa foster unity and liberation? Was one of your questions. It's up to us to follow the blueprints left by Malua Kenga and our ancestors. Our ancestors fought, bled, died to make our future better. We must do the same for the ones that's coming after us. Unapologetically strong and fearless. We will not compromise. We will not comply. We will not submit. We will not bow. We will not break. We will not roll over. We will not sit down. We will not shut up. We will not go quietly.
So one of the things that I've heard and it comes up from time to time is people saying, well, this seems to be based on African principles, which of course it is. I'm not African, as in a black person who's saying they're not African. I don't think I want to embrace this. And even some people who have a concern, well, I'm Christian or I'm Muslim or Hindu or whatever, and so I can't, as a black person, practice Kwanzaa. What is your take on that?
Well, a lot of it is miseducation. They don't know. Black Hindus, black Muslims, anybody black can celebrate Kwanzaa. That's what it's designed to do.
You heard it here.
To bring that continental
Umoja,
thoughts.
unity.
Absolutely.
Yes. Because
Absolutely.
everything we're trying to accomplish as a people would require us coming together.
And there's a saying too, you know, I use it sometimes, you know, it's, we may not have been born in Africa, but Africa was born in us. We can't deny that. And when I tell them that, they sometimes have to think about that. Because a lot of them don't think they're Africans, period. A lot of them don't want to be, when I say African, of African descent as well.
Because of all the
negativity.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
reprogramming. You know, we've been reprogrammed. You know, we've been dehumanized. You know, and that's embedded basically in our DNA.
So we still see Africa as a negative thing. I bet you don't want to be associated with that.
Yes.
But I firmly believe that when I look at the other cultures, like when they say I'm from Germany, I'm German. When they say I'm from China, I'm Chinese. When they say I'm from America, you know, we went from Negro to colored to black, you know, and it's sad because we shouldn't be African American. We should be just African in general.
Well, I use my own term. I call myself a non-native African. I may not have been born in Africa, but Africa was born in me.
Exactly.
You have native Africans and anybody that's not on that continent in the diaspora, like she said, we are non-native Africans. That's what I use.
But that's a part of Kwanzaa, you know, know yourself. You know,
Know yourself.
Know yourself, you know, and a lot of us do not, you know, they've been so conditioned, you know, and that's another subject, you know, because we do a rites of passage, and that helps the children from an early age to know who they are, you know, and it's sad because I cry for them.
Yeah, well,
I cry. I do. I cry.
It's difficult, you know, doing segregation. We probably had more control over our children than we've ever had.
And certainly before technology like we know it now.
Oh my, yes.
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 Because even with this generation, when my kids were younger, I don't have TVs in their room. When we watch TV, we watch together, all of that. Now, if your child has a phone, the access, even with the parental access, actually I laugh at the parental access because my children know more about the technology than I do. Yeah. They know my passwords, and so it's almost a joke when I try to put, but
I want to add one thing too, you know, there's another quote that I have: to whom you give your children is to whom you give your future. And if we don't educate our children, then nothing changes.
It might actually change, but change for the worse.
Well, I'm just saying, we're going to be gone eventually.
Yes.
But they're still conditioned.
Yes.
We now condition our children in addition to what they're doing because we were conditioned ourselves.
Yes.
If we don't get out of that realm and begin to read these books.
Yes.
You know, I used to say at the store, a lot of black people read.
Get this book.
Yeah.
Spiritual warriors and healers. That one.
A lot of black people read. It's not that we don't read, but we don't read the correct material. We're reading what they told us
because even information and knowledge has been colonized.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So as you were talking about the programming and where we're from and so on and so forth, I was thinking of a quote from Malcolm X. He said, "Just because you take some kittens and put them in the oven, don't make them no biscuits." You know, and so yes, you may never have touched soil in Africa, but
well, I have.
Yes, but this is your ancestry. It is your ancestry, and you should want to know who you are. and want to understand why it has been hidden.
Yeah, and one thing about us, we
Still,
are a
period,
strong
point blank.
people.
Like
We
Maya Angelou
are
said,
a
and
strong
still
people.
I
And
rise.
that's absolutely right. Whatever they do, however they put us back, we come back. We're at a point in our lives where we're back to a certain extent. And what are they doing? They're taking the history out of the books, out of the libraries, the curriculums on black history. Why? During enslavement, we couldn't read. You know, they burn your eyes out, cut your tongue out. Even during Jim Crow, they controlled what we read.
So we have a choice to make.
You're absolutely right.
And one of
We
those
have to
choices
find-
is to,
educate
Yes.
our children.
yes. So
I
on
heard-
that
listen,
note,
I
yes.
just want to say this. I heard George's baby Bush,
Mm-hmm.
wife say once, television. She said the reason the rest of the world hate us is because we don't educate them. That told me everything.
Well, there you have it.
They've weaponized
It's propaganda,
education.
yes.
No, they've weaponized it.
Always have,
Yeah.
yes.
It
yes.
works for them.
And as Carter G. Woodson said, I've said it before on this show,
Miseducation of the
once you
Negro.
control a person's mind, you control everything else about them.
That's right.
So talking about that, and of course the show is called Rethinking Freedom.
Mhm.
What does freedom mean to you, and especially in the context of Kwanzaa? What does freedom mean to you, Mama?
Oh wow. For me right now, it's just being able to have a sound mind. You know, with everything that's going on, the influences, you know, by individuals or influences by people or events that's happening, you know, we have to be able to think logically.
Think.
You know,
Think.
you know, not be taught what to think,
Yes.
but be able to actually have that spirit of intuition in you.
Yes.
You know, and once you be able to have that, you be able to basically promote Kwanzaa. You know, we'll be, and what I mean by promoting it is the 7 principles.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Once we live it,
Yes.
once we internalize it, it's going to make us stronger and it's going to make us spiritual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
But we can't just do it in 7 days.
No,
It has to be
365.
365. It really does. It's just like Black History, you know.
You know who
They
does
give us the
365? She's actually on Sirius XM, Lori Daniel Favors. She, every single day, she just follows it 7 days and then she starts again. So every single day on her show, there is an Nguzo Saba, one of the principles that she highlights for that day. I have another friend talking about how you practice Kwanzaa, who incorporates it into his calendar. His calendar actually says today is Kuumba, Kujichagulia,
Right.
for 365 days, and it's what am I doing in line with that principle? Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So what is your answer to that question? I always ask all our guests, what does
Okay.
freedom mean to you, but today in the context of Kwanzaa as
All
well?
right, what does freedom mean to me? The 13th Amendment, first of all, didn't free us. The 13th Amendment released us into more oppression. So in all honesty, I didn't experience real freedom until my journey to Ghana, Africa in 2018 for a month.
Wow.
Yeah. In Ghana, I felt free because everything, and I mean everything, looked like me. The people, firemen, their military, their political leaders, all looked like me. I didn't have to worry about Caucasian racism. I didn't have to look over my shoulders while driving, while walking, driving while black, or walking while black, for that matter. When I say that, I truly mean that. I've never in my 75 years experienced the freedom that I felt there. And if I had millions of dollars, I would send as many of us back to Africa as I could. I really would. Because we've been so miseducated, and deception, of course. What I saw was beautiful. You know, they talk about all the poverty and all those things. I told the guide that I had, he kept talking about, they all impoverished, you know. They were out there selling things. I mean, you can start at your hotel, by the time you get back, you can have all your groceries, and you get them from the street.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
serious
sir.
about that.
Yes.
So he kept saying, you know, I said, well, I don't see poverty. I see business. I see people that know how to make a living. They had their children out there with them, you know. They don't get no welfare. They don't get none of those programs.
It depends on the lens through which you see things, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes. So when I told him that, he looked at me. He says, I never saw. He lives there. And I've been there all his life. He said, I never saw that. But
Because even in Africa, the colonization took place. I mean, we so-called got independence, but our systems are all still Western systems, and they still denigrate us, whether it's with the religion or with our books, with our legal systems. We basically kept everything that they brought instead of going back to our roots. So again, as we look at Kwanzaa, as we're wrapping up this time that we have together, how does celebrating Kwanzaa advance freedom in your perspective?
Kwanzaa advances freedom because it's a reminder that we have our own homeland, Africa. It reminds us and our children that our history didn't begin in Africa. Kwanzaa isn't just a celebration. Kwanzaa is more about the education of our children.
Kwanzaa is about the education of our children. So all of you out there who are saying, you know, sometimes these children don't listen to me. I know, I've been there as well. It is time for us to bring our children together in a cultural celebration that centers who we are, that takes our history back to its origins, because we did not start here on these shores, that helps us to understand who we are and why we should show up perhaps differently than how we do today. And so we invite everyone to come and join us at this Community Kwanzaa celebration on December 28th. Check the description, and the link will be in the description, telling you where you can get more information, also letting you know about the books and the resources that we've shared today. And I will say, above all, as we continue to rethink freedom, it's important to be willing to push past whatever programming you have received. And if you've never taken a look at Kwanzaa before, this might be a good time as a person of African descent to take a look at it and see how these principles could be the thing that helps in aiding your individual freedom and our collective freedom. Again, thank you to our guests for being here today. I know this will not be the last time. and Mama Darlene is looking at me like, you don't know what it took for me to come out today. But I appreciate it. She did absolutely amazing. Thank you all so much. And to our guests, all of you watching, thank you, or listening, because this is also on the radio. Thank you for supporting what we're doing here. Please share the word. Please go to our website, to our YouTube channel, and definitely subscribe and share this with as many people as possible. And you know what? We would love to hear about your own Kwanzaa traditions. So be sure to put that in the comments as well. And we will see you next week as we continue to rethink freedom.